Welcome, everyone. Glad to have you here today. I'm Sherilyn Leet, Director of Education and Partnerships at 6 Seconds Global Office, and we are thrilled to have so many people here from so many countries to talk about student well-being at the higher education level. College students today are experiencing unprecedented levels of emotional turmoil, which was true even before the pandemic and now even more so. For example, the US Surgeon General recently announced one of the first ever national advisories on youth mental health. And at this point, colleges and universities are grappling with their role in providing services and getting ahead of the ensuing tsunami of need at this moment. Another study that came out in the US from the Center of Disease Control released what they call persistent feelings of sadness and hopelessness increased from 26 to 44% since 2009. So this is considered the highest level of teenage sadness on record. So with 6 Seconds, we are here today to bring some experts to discuss what would take the shift from reaction to prevention, and what would also cause us to, instead of just talking about mental illness, also talking about mental and student wellness, well-being, and thriving, vitality. So with that, I'm so pleased today to have our 5 experts here on our panel, representing different colleges and university departments from around the world, all to discuss the issue and the urgency of student well-being needs. So please introduce yourselves and share one word that you associate with positive mental health. We're going to turn this conversation on its head. So I see Amal, Angela, and Bob. If you could begin, you're the first on my screen.
Thank you, Sherilyn. I'm happy to be here today. I am the college deputy at Jebel University College. And I actually started studying EQ because of the problems I was noticing, all the stress and panic attacks that my students were having. And one word I would use for well-being would be having a sense of belonging, so connection.
Okay, hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Angela Lowe, and I am an instructor in the University of British Columbia here in Vancouver, Canada. I teach 2 graduate courses on social and emotional learning, one in schools and one in the early years. And I've only also just myself been a mature graduate student that finished my doctorate in the same field as well. So, and I should say the other piece is I'm working at the moment with a public health agency on developing and evaluating a provincial program to promote social and emotional development in early years. And this is just a super important topic right now. I've been reflecting on what's a good word to represent mental health is. And you know what, I used to think flourishing and thriving, but I feel like those benches might be a little bit high right now. So I'm going to go with okayness. Like, I think okayness, feeling okay. I'm okay with what I feel. I know I'm going to be okay socially with my friends, and whatever comes at me, I'll be okay. Like, I think okayness is where I'm at.
Oof, I love that, Angela. Hello, everybody. My name is Bob Just. I serve as a leadership educator at the University of San Francisco, and I've been in my role for about 6 years now, where I get to teach classes and also run co-curricular programs for students who want to learn more about how to be effective with themselves and with others. And as far as my journey with EQ, I've known it's been important for a while, and luckily I've been going through the certification process over the past year and been rolling out more programs around emotional intelligence with our students. And it's been amazing to see the change and the shift. And I think that's kind of why I'm starting to see my word around positive mental health is just resilience. Really seeing our students being able to go through a pandemic and still maintain and work hard to figure out who they are in the process. They've been demonstrating nothing but resilience.
Isaac and Laura, please.
Isaac's on mute. I am too.
Oh, yeah. My name is Isaac Carter. Sorry, I was on mute. I work work as a consultant primarily with higher education and as well as nonprofits, and I work with students that teach leadership courses as well, things that involve diversity, equity, inclusion, cultural studies. And when I work in my work currently, I feel like the students are wanting to matter. Their holistic self is not about what we want to put into their head so they can learn, but they actually feel like who they are matters to the institution, to the professors, and especially thinking about transitioning to the working world in this midst of this great resignation, that their presence and their talents and skills will matter when they get there. So that's the word I would choose.
Hi, I'm Laura Mitchell, and I'm an associate professor at the University of Houston, downtown in Houston, Texas. And I'm in my dream job of teaching education and preparing students to be teachers in our schools. And my main area is bilingual education and literacy. So I work with many students that come from backgrounds of DACA and immigration, and they've already lived a life of being concerned, worried, scared, and they have lots of persistence and resilience, and I love working with them because of their motivation. What I've seen this past almost 3 years now is that sense of not really knowing where they're going and what's going to happen next, and it's very scary for them because of that trauma they've already been through. I've always been known as the professor who tells her students to breathe. And I always did that because I'd walk in my classroom, I could just feel them. And so then I started mindfulness during the pandemic and EQ, and now we intentionally breathe. So my word is breathe.
Thank you so much. Well, a lot of very powerful words to consider, and I see people are adding their own in the audience. I think people are really feeling also okayness as a topic. I think in order to prepare for this talk today, I actually made some phone calls to some young people in my life and asked, what would you, if you had a microphone, what would you like to say to the world? And one student said, well, I'm going to be honest with you. You're calling right in the middle of what I experienced to be a mental health crisis, but not for myself, for my roommate. And she went and proceeded to talk about how she was in the middle of drafting an email to a professor explaining why she missed an assignment that was 70 points because she decided to spend the time instead helping that roommate get support at the campus health and calling the roommate's parents and proceeding in that direction. So, as I'm thinking about that story and listening to all of you here, I'm really watching two things at the same time, right? Resilience of these students, the perseverance, the ability to prioritize among everything, knowing that actually, yes, that the wellness of that student roommate is actually more important than a 70-point, psychology. In essence, maybe she's living out the ethics and values of a psychology major in what she's doing, right? So I suppose I'd love to hear more. Mr. Just, I know you work with a lot of leadership programming. What have been your observations over the years in the Bay Area of watching students as they develop their leadership and how their well-being's been affected?
Yeah, thanks for asking. I think one of the actually confusing things in coming back from the pandemic is, and I've been talking with a lot of my colleagues on campus, we've seen a real dip in the amount of students who want to get involved in whether it's organizations, workshops, programs. And at first I thought, I'm like, is it me? Is there something going on with like what I'm doing on is what I'm doing, like the students just aren't picking it up? And I was talking with colleagues across the division in almost every single area of traditional programs that students love applying to. We've just seen them sort of not want to grab onto those things. And instead, we've been seeing our numbers go through the roof as it relates to mental health services and our counseling and psychology, our CAP center. And it's just very clear. Students have a lot that's on their plates right now. There's a lot that's on their minds, and they want to be able to prioritize the things that matter to them. Kind of like your example of, yeah, it's an assignment, it's a piece of paper, but this person in front of me needs my help. And I think that's the day and age that I'm seeing in University of San Francisco and the Bay Area. Students are just really going toward belonging. I think that was a really good word with really thinking through who are the people that need my attention the most and why. But of the students who are still getting engaged and getting involved, it's been really clear that mental health is the number one thing that's on their mind. I did a survey with my students, and 40% of them said this is the number one challenge that I'm experiencing while I'm in college and also since I've graduated. And the closest other ones were money and debt, which I think all of us could relate with at some point. But I know that this is something that if we're not talking about it, we're missing the mark in higher education.
Thank you so much. And I'm curious, Dr. Mitchell, are you seeing the same in Texas at this moment?
Very much so. And I was just thinking as you were talking, Bob, about how our students are opting not to be involved in their student organizations, which is where they really gain their sense of belonging in our campus, because we're not a resident campus, we're a city college, and they are letting that go because of all the other stress. And it just seems like when you ask for help, like we were talking about a little bit earlier for mental health, the idea is, oh, you need to get a therapist, and then if you call therapists in any kind of format, they're so overloaded and overwhelmed that they don't have time, they can't see you. And then here's a student who finally reached out for help, and they're not getting help. And so that leaves them in a place of huge frustration. And I think as we're talking here, our university has a huge responsibility of knowing how to meet the needs of our students. Whether we're in a pandemic, a post-pandemic, or pre-pandemic, that is the university's responsibility. And finding ways to meet those needs in ways other than just, calling mental health services is great, but there's more that we as university entities can be doing. And I feel like we are doing a lot. I think universities are throwing money and offering programs, but they're not checking in with our students to say, what do you need and how can we help?
Thank you so much, Dr. Mitchell. I was speaking with someone a couple weeks ago, and they're a mental health clinician and a campus health situation at a university, and they were saying, it's like expecting the campus health center to be responsible for all of the mental wellness on campus is like expecting a lifeguard to take care of the entire beach with everyone, swimming at the same time, for the whole summer at once. And she said it's just not realistic. And I completely agree. And I hear that from what everyone here is saying today. I'd love to take it internationally. So Dr. Lowe, would you mind sharing a little bit about your observation in Saudi regarding student needs?
It's mostly the same. I think the pandemic increased it. It was still there before, but and I guess there was like a focus on making sure that the teaching and the learning objectives were getting done, and that we continued even through the pandemic. We kind of ignored some things that we should be focusing on, like stress, and that stress led to students thinking, like relaxing some maybe morals, like about cheating. And then as academics, we had to focus more on making sure they weren't cheating rather than finding out the root cause of that, which is the stress and feeling overwhelmed and all the expectations that they have on them. And I think that prevention is like also important. We focus a lot on the after effects, or the students that are showing mental ill health, but prevention is also very important.
Absolutely. Thank you. And Dr. Lowe in Canada.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, I mean the same issues are showing up. And personally, in my own classrooms, I've had an increase in students coming in with anxiety disorders, and some of them come accompanied with letters from the Center of Accessibility that we have here, but those are the ones that seek help. And I mean, it's visible in the climate of the classroom and the energies and the stories that students are bringing into the classroom with, because we know students don't come in as a blank canvas ready to receive. We know that people walk into the space with all this, carrying all this load, and the load has been significantly and visibly heavier in the last year. And I think I just wanted to sort of connect with the what Bob and Laura were talking about, with the disconnect with the social activities on campus. I think that adds to the problem, because we talk about resilience, and that is part of the resilience when we're able to fill our buckets with these opportunities for connection and fun and just venting off some negative energies. And students over here anyway haven't had that for over a year. So sort of adding on to the weight of the world, and then not having access to your usual channels of what fills your bucket. I think that's just a formula for decreased mental health. And yeah.
So in a way, emphasis on student extracurriculars, programming, leadership development groups and clubs, other things that used to be considered extra, now we're actually seeing as vital parts of the belonging experience for college students. That's the theme I'm hearing from you all. Thank you. So speed round. If you all could make one change at your institution to improve students' well-being this year, what would it be? And I'm going to hand it to Isaac. Dr. Carter.
Thank you, Sherilyn. For me, I think there's an opportunity for us to reimagine what the campus is like. And as a campus community, how can we as faculty, staff, academic affairs, student affairs, enrollment, custodial services, physical plant, we have a wealth of knowledge of people who have lived life, overcome challenges, and found a way to make it through. If we can resituate and think of our campus as a community that is going to foster belonging and connection and put everybody in a position of value and worth in that. And then also to role model some of these skills, because we know in some of the work I've worked with faculty and staff talking about how we support students, but they talk about the need to support themselves because they're dealing with the pandemic and war and all the evil atrocities that are taking place in the world, and they are people too. And so how do we better prepare and empower them with the skill set to actually role model, to be able to actually welcome in these students into an environment of belonging? So I think it matters as much as students are trying to belong, what are we doing to cultivate campuses that are fostering a sense of belonging?
Thank you so much for bringing it back to the campus as a living, breathing village community. I'd like to open up the floor. Other comments about that? How can that reimagining of the campus community, or maybe we used to have it and it's now become siloed? What are your thoughts?
I can hop in. So one of the things that I was actually very inspired by through one of the programs that I teach, a group of juniors and seniors for their capstone project thought around mental health and well-being, and they offered the idea of within the classroom experience, they hardly ever see any statements on mental health lodged within the syllabus, and just what the teacher's perspective and support is going to look like through their course experience as it relates to mental health and the way that they're going to be able to succeed in the classroom. So I loved that. I thought it was brilliant. And just to be able to make that an ingrained piece of the curricular experience that faculties, instructors are clearly stating from the very beginning with their students, what's it going to be like if you're having a day where you can't be there, where you can't, where you need to help that friend, and are you going to be penalized for it? Or, and I think that really sends a clear message to students that the faculty, the instructors, they want to see them succeed. So I don't think many institutions are doing that right now, but as a teacher, I'm like, yep, we're going to be bringing that into my syllabi for the rest of the time. And I think that is a really easy ask of our faculty and our instructors.
Can I add on to that? So that's one of the things that I've started doing in my classes, is to start with a class charter. The charter is one of the tools from Ruler, and it really sort of brings into the space at the beginning of a term that your feelings matter and how you want to feel in order to learn matter. And what can we as a community in the classroom do to foster these feelings that help you learn and to consistently throughout the term. So there's a question in there about, and if you're not feeling this way, what can we do as a classroom community? So I think more approaches like that, and really kind of educating the faculty around, ways to normalize feelings, because we all have feelings. I think that's the thing I've been sort of trying to figure out, is that there should be a way to acknowledge the feelings that are coming into the classroom, and to say that these emotions really matter for your success as a student, and to have strategies in place, but also to support the instructor with the skill set that allows them to be comfortable with holding the space and not burnt out from it. So that's what I'm really musing over at the moment. How do we create an experience in the classroom, where meeting students where they're going, like in the classrooms, and creating a space there that promotes their well-being, rather than say, here, go call mental health, because the onus shouldn't be on the student. It should be on us creating those spaces that promote mental well-being.
Such a powerful turning of the table, Angela. Thank you so much. Anyone? Oh, you're muted, Laura. We'd love to hear. Please. I do that all the time.
I do all the time. So I just love the idea of what Isaac's saying, or maybe even Bob was saying about intentionally putting things in the syllabus about what you're doing to make your class well-being, safe, all the social, emotional learning things, dimensions that we want. And I was just thinking, I'm a person that does do those things, but I don't intentionally put it into the syllabus. And if I put it in the syllabus, as we know, that's our contract. And then that means we have to do it, or we have to carry through with it as best we can. And it's a contract agreement between the students and us. And so it puts it in a different level of intentionality that I hadn't thought about.
Yeah, I love what everyone's saying about the community, because if we all shared information, like the student services, guidance counselors, fed back what they were seeing from students to faculty and vice versa, then we would have a complete picture of what's going on and what we can do about it. And I also love the fact about adding the contract in the syllabus about how you can handle these emotional situations, because a lot of the time students come to us when it's too late. If they had come early on, and they don't think that they should be sharing these things, but when they share them, we can help them. We can find alternatives for them. When they come too late, then it's harder to find ways for them to be able to continue on with their degrees or their programs without, and still be able to manage their well-being.
There's something so interesting about creating a container in advance for these conversations and being proactive in that regard. It actually reminded me of something my dad taught me. He's a physician, and he was saying whenever he was conducting a kind of, he knew it was going to be a painful exploration, he would start the conversation by saying, this may be painful, and you're in control. You tell me when to stop at any point. And he was trained to do that by his mentor. And lo and behold, the times that he created space and put them in power and control, the patients almost never interrupted the procedure. But the times that where he said he just went for it and forgot to give that little disclaimer, they were saying, no, whoa, stop, I can't do this, and would leave the building and have to come back and reschedule. So it just shows, in the emotional experience, even with the physical pain, but the emotional experience of being a student in a high pressure cooker situation, such as colleges and universities, what does that even mean to create a container for their feelings in advance? So what an amazing conversation. I'd like to highlight some of the comments that we've seen in the chat. Amy Sargent mentioned, her suggestion of incorporating emotional intelligence, not just as an add-on, but an integrated part of a variety of subjects. I know, in the room today, we have specialists on educational psychology who does teacher training and incorporates EQ into that. I know we also have business administration and MBA students and undergraduate student studies focusing on those pairings, cultural studies, and leadership studies. So you can see that, emotional intelligence really does touch all realms. I even mentioned medicine. So to move our conversation forward, we started talking about, the campus health system not being enough, and they're working on overload. What is it? What are the skills that we can teach the whole campus to show these campus health personnel some more support and stop the flood their way? What are the explicit skills you all would like to teach? So, Bob, would you like to offer some explicit skills?
Well, of course, know yourself, choose yourself, give yourself. Doing that 1, 2, 3 KCG, but I think it's been so cool to see me design some of these workshops where students are getting the opportunity just to go through a giant list of emotions and feelings and use that to start thinking through what is it that I'm experiencing within myself right now. To their surprise, they really don't stop enough. They don't think enough as to what is going on in my body, what kind of sensations am I feeling? What's the word that best describes that? And giving tools just in the step one here of being able to enhance their emotional literacy has started really changing the game. I actually, one of my students decided to create stickers of their feelings wheel and put that on their water bottle so that every single day when they're going through the moments, they can be looking to that as a way of better understanding, how am I feeling? How is that affecting me right now? So I think just giving them tangible skills in learning, what are emotions that are out there and how can I better identify the way that that's impacting me is the first step in promoting skill development, not just within students, but also faculty and staff. My colleagues have been responding really well to it and are thankful that we're talking about this because it's not something that they get in their graduate training. It's not something we get typically in our professional development. So it's been really neat to integrate these basic building blocks in socio-emotional learning.
Wonderful. So that emotional literacy skill of, seeing what's in your body, being able to name it, being granular, just keeping that front of mind, seeing the power within those emotional experiences. Dr. Lowe, we read something of yours in which you were analyzing students from years past and their ability to participate in group projects in business school, and your reflection on the need to provide more training on recognizing patterns and empathy. Would you mind speaking a little about that at this moment?
Of course, in the groups, you need to work with different people. Sometimes you choose your group and sometimes you can't choose your group. And there can be a lot of emotions involved, especially in stressful situations. So navigating, recognizing your patterns, how you usually work, what you usually do would help you in these situations, deciding how you're going to act, what can you do the next time you're going to, in your next group meeting, to get different results. And also empathy for other people and empathy for yourself, especially with all the high expectations we have and the emphasis on doing. Having some empathy for yourself can make you more empathetic to other people. Maybe they are having a bad week And it won't hurt if I take on a bit more of the responsibilities this week, and they take on next week if they can. And I think it makes us just better people. And
thank you so much. And any other skills that the students might need to develop before we launch into faculty development skills, which may be one and the same, but I'll leave that up to you.
Oh, you go. Yeah, I just wanted to add, I think, so I think in terms of, as we think about students too, giving them access to the value they bring to a campus. Oftentimes we approach students, we talked about earlier, this empty slate that we're going to put something into. And I think Dr. Yosho's work around community cultural wealth, giving students a language to talk about what they bring to a campus community, understanding they have this navigational capital, aspirational capital, familiar capital, resistance capital, in some cases linguistic capital, that they can use as a resource for them to matter and deepen their connection with their peers in the campus, and reminding and emphasizing and celebrating that with students so that they can really feel a sense of empowerment and agency in how they want to establish their relationships with the campus community.
Completely agree.
Yeah, I love that. I was going to say something and that sort of just shifted my thoughts in this, but yeah, I think sort of empowering a connection or shifting a focus in what we teach on how we want to teach to more of what makes sense and meaning to students' goals and circumstances in a way. And I think, having been a mature student myself, it could look like normalizing different paths to successfully navigate a course, and in a way that could be lowering the stakes on timelines and grades, for example. There's a professor in this university that I've heard of, in my university, that sort of says you could be A student or a B student. Just as you come in, you can decide what you want to do, and if you like, you can just take this track where you don't have to perform at a particular level, but it might be a way to navigate this course that makes more sense and meaning to where you are right now. And then there is the other track where it's about its performance, sort of more anchored to performance, but also creating these projects or space for them to discover the personal meaning that this course can have for them. And that's where I'm drawing from what you just said, Isaac, that I think, like the courses that I've taken and known and been in, there's lots of them that can make a bit more space to helping a student discover their own voice and how this might have meaning for what they do on the ground. And I think this nurtures optimism, right? Like you sort of started today with this word of hopelessness that hangs on me. And I think the thing to counteract that is optimism. And we have to, there's ways to create courses and environments that help to foster optimism.
So I would really like to see how we could tie into our students their motivation. They're there for a reason. And sometimes we kind of forget about that. Feel like they're there. I'm here to teach, and that's what I'm going to do today. And so one of the things that I've been working with just most recently is a difference between what are my intentions and what are my goals. So as you know, the goals are, I'm going to make an A in this class, or I'm going to finish this class so I can get to my next one. I can take my certification test. Those are goals. My intention is how I'm going to show up today. And how am I going to be? And that's always like kind of some of the suggestions Bob was making about remembering those emotions that you're feeling and how you're doing them. What will you do once you're doing those intentions? Will that get you to your goals? And I think as we tap into those two areas with our students and remember why they're here and what they want to accomplish, I think we could be meeting their needs a little bit better.
What I hear from you, Laura, is connecting it back to you know, in the 6 seconds model, it's the give yourself section, the go, grow, do something, you know, connected to that purpose. This isn't just a class, a transactional experience where you're just checking it off 1 out of 3 and then I'm done and I get my certificate or my approval. It's like, who do you want to be in my class? How does this actually really, how does the material bring your profession to life? Let's make that connection. And then with Dr. Carter's, you know, very powerful and important point of teaching students that they already have a lot of these skills within them and in their communities that they're bringing onto campus already. It's not, like you said, a vessel to be filled. That's part of really knowing yourself and your community and standing proud with it and helping make sure that institutions honor that and make space for that is so, so important. So thank you. I'd like to point out some comments in the chat from Dr. Latund. She talked about integrating mindfulness and then also transition this idea of faculty's idea of rigor. I've heard that conversation numerous times at the K-12 level as well. I have been watching some schools modify their mission or even redefine what rigor means to them in light of some onslaught of well-being concerns, I would say. Thoughts and comments on Yvette's very powerful statement?
Well, coming from the K-12 setting, rigor was the buzzword, and you know, and I think in the university higher ed level, faculty love to think of themselves as very rigorous. You know, I'm a tough professor. You have to work hard to make an A in my class, and faculty seem to like that identity. And when you, even just reading that just now, my whole body just rigor, and that just took all my wellness out of me, as you said it, as we were thinking, even though it was putting it into a good question, the word just sent me into another space. And I know our students have been raised in this, at least in the United States, in this idea of we're going to do more rigorous work. We're going to study for the test. We're going to, and they've lived this life. They don't know much else in terms of how to learn.
Thanks, Isaac. I feel like we're in sync with the unmuting of the buttons. All that's coming up for me is I wish rigor included empathy. I wish rigor included helping that roommate that was suffering, or for a faculty member, you know, checking in on the student who's having a tough time and having those extra conversations with the student that goes along. I think that's the thing. Like we know that mental well-being is something that we all need to address, whether as individuals to promote our own well-being or as faculty members, but it's not being valued in a tangible way in terms of performance or how you're valued as a faculty member. So yes, like the rigor conversation happens here too. And my contribution is just, I wish there was a way to systematically and culturally extend it out to saying what rigorous means is also promoting and noticing the well-being of your students.
Yeah, and just real quick, I think it's a powerful comment that Yvette shared with us. That what if the rigor was the relationships? What if there was rigor put into like how we value building relationships, especially when we think about 10-year promotion processes, where it's about knowledge and periodical journals and et cetera, but what if we were actually, you know, thinking about training and valued that people who go out and help build relationships and connections for the students, as well as, you know, new faculty and staff to the institution. If we could value that, the rigor in that, I think it would go a long way in cultivating a different type of campus community.
I think I'd be remiss not to hop in on a conversation around rigor and my background in leadership. And I jokingly see that too, because, you know, leadership as its core it's a relational process of people working together to create change. And a number of my programs, whether it's co-curricular, whether it's an actual class, involve group projects, involve some level of performance. They involve working together toward things that could be challenging or hard. And it's been so important to me to teach them it's not about the getting to the end finish line and being just completely drained and just a combustion of fumes. It's about how well did you prioritize working with the people that you're with. I tell them from the very beginning with their projects, I don't care what you produce, I care about how you get there, how you are prioritizing each other, how you're working with one another, how you're treating each other and yourselves. If you can make that your focus of excellence, then you'll have learned something in this process and in this course. And it's been interesting to me as like a white male growing up in Vermont, queer identified. I felt like I had to like achieve my entire life, and like I have to go through really rigorous processes to be of worth and be of value. And to Dr. Carter's statements around YOSO and really teaching people that it must be more about the relationships along the way. I'm so happy that I unlearned some of those concepts that I thought rigor was supposed to be so challenging that it just you had to sacrifice people or things to get to where you needed to be. And I much more come from that place of abundance now, and try to teach that to our students that if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
I think sometimes we forget we're developing a whole human being, a person, not just an accountant or a computer engineer and those skills are useful to some extent. They might not be in a couple of years, something new might come up, but the human being, the being able to form relationships, being able to have a vision and take people with you towards your vision and communicate are things that will always stay with you no matter what you do.
Makes me think about, I went out to, I was presenting at a conference. All I'll say is it was on the East Coast of the United States. And I got coffee with a friend who was completing her doctorate in neuroscience. And when I was asking how it was going, then a bunch of her friends she ran into at the same shop, and they all sat together, and I was just listening. And I told her what I do and what we do at 6 Seconds. And our goal at the time, 3 years ago, was to start creating more groups to talk about these things at the university level. And not just undergraduate and first year programming, but also graduate students and their help and support. And they each proceeded to tell me stories that essentially would amount to verbal, psychological, and even some like leaning towards like sexual abuse. And these are women between 25 and 35, very accomplished, published, and I just was stunned. I knew that was happening, but I couldn't imagine that one program that everyone had been currently going through something like this at a very established university. So with that, what can we do to shake up not just the faculty's idea of rigor, but to be giving them skills that enable them to promote their own skill set in this area, that emotions do matter, their well-being matters just like their students' well-being matters. What are your thoughts?
I have some thoughts. Because this is what, actually we had a meeting on this yesterday in our department. So I was really pleased with our dean for opening this kind of conversation up. But one of my work that I do is cultural identity of teachers. And the very first place we go is ourselves and reflect inward about ourselves and who we are, where we came from, what's important to us. And I feel like if we could follow that pattern of reflection of looking inward and then looking out, it would create these things that we're all talking about. We're talking about sense of belonging. We're talking about empathy, connection, relationships. And we don't spend enough time doing that reflective process about ourselves and who we are and what's important to us. And I would like to see more. We have to do professional development, at the university level. We've got a whole department set up for that. And we look good if we're going to those programs and doing that stuff, and they're even giving stipends and money. And I would like to see more of that kind of work going into our professional developments. And I think it might be out there, but it, just like the way we live and breathe the curriculum in the 6 seconds, I would like to see that kind of thing happening in the university at the higher ed level.
Following up on Laura's thought, I think I'm totally digging what you're saying, and I believe like we could use the emotional intelligence assessments and cultural intelligence assessments to start measuring our faculties, capacities, and use that and look at department level or division level and seeing how we can grow those capacities, and so they are on a path for growth and development in their emotional or cultural intelligence, so that they actually could be more instrumental in helping students develop their own. I think that we need to constantly be on a journey, but it's not a journey of the mind. I think that with the point you're making, is that we got to be on our own inner journey of development and growth. And I think that would be essential if college and universities made time and invested in measuring and have some expectations on where they want their faculty EQ levels to be at in particular areas, and take it seriously. And if we took it more seriously, then I think we could better position ourselves to help and support students.
The metrics matter, especially those in the science professions and engineering. I think we've all seen it as we've been taking the data to the data analysts and let them see their own emotional intelligence growth and scores and metrics. I think a lot of us grew up in a time where you couldn't measure these invisible things. So, it's confusing to be told later in your life that actually psychometrics have come a long way, and there's so much we can do to track. It might not be accurate, it's just a snapshot, and it gives us at least a direction to point to as a community and a group. Amal.
Yeah, I think I would definitely have obligatory EQ training for teachers before they can teach, and for all new students. I think that would be a life changer for everybody. And I would love to have more talk about values and shared values. So what each student or faculty member values are and what our shared values are. And then that helps guide us on what we want to do and how we want to do it.
And if I can just add too, I think, like I definitely agree that, that metrics matter, but I think meaning making really matters as well. Like sort of to find ways to show how investing in emotional skills and social skills and front loading them, front loading building relationships at the beginning of the term can really make the term go easier for faculty members. Because I think maybe for me, in my experience, part of the barriers or the resistance there is that the dots haven't been connected yet. So knowing that if you took the time in the beginning of the term to create relationships, to get to know your students as people with lives and to share your own as well and to make those connections, then I do believe, and I've seen it happen many times, that it builds a climate where we can get to problems before they become big. And I know in K-12, like I've seen in classrooms, that the teachers do this, that they front load in September the relationship building, and it sort of helps to get through problem solving a little bit quicker throughout the term. So I think that like opening space for that realization that this is not extra work, but it is essential work that helps make a term go easier. And I think there's a real opportunity for it now, because I've just heard in conversations with my colleagues as well that it is true that emotions are spilling into our classrooms and people are more anxious, they're more worried, they get more frustrated. Emotions are just bubbling up to the surface a bit more. So it is part of the job now to really recognize these feelings and put into play strategies as a classroom community that can help to mitigate that or navigate those going forward.
Such a powerful consideration. I hear that a lot in the corporate realm too. Well, I have to hit this deadline, so I don't have time to let the team get to know each other's names and where they're from. Like, I need to jump straight to the what and the why. But all of us in this room, I know, and many on chat, have experienced the long-term resistance and how that slows down your process, because not everyone is aligned in the room. They become either working directly against your initiative and the deadline, or at least not helping, rowing the boat together. And so there's a lot of research on why this matters, and that front loading the relational building actually saves you time in the long run. But I want to point out Jarrett Rogers' question regarding this. Essentially, how do you connect if students are concerned, or people are thinking that in your careers you're going to be measured just on performance instead of trustworthiness? Is that the case? And how do universities, if that is a pressure of performance, where do these social emotional skills fit in? So you all are the experts and researchers. What have you observed?
It's a real tightrope to walk, and I've got caught in it in this game. And I'm very strong in relationships and with my colleagues, my students, all that, and our partners in our city. And still, there's a place where you just have to produce the work, and that means you gotta compete. You have to go isolate and do certain kinds of work. The thing is, we love collaboration, so collaborate with teams and with this, but you're also competing and at so many levels with those same people. And it's a tightrope that I don't know how to really navigate it well. I don't think I navigate that well.
I can sort of hop in on this. It's really interesting. My partner and I, a long time ago, we were just kind of evaluating our relationships with work. And for me, I'm very much a live to work. I love the idea of education. I love what I do. Time is of no essence in terms of I love what I do. I can do it all the time. It's great. It's never ending. And then for him, it's more about work as a way of living. Like he works to live. And so for him, he has that relationship with work where it's about being able to see it as a means to an end, as a means to be able to live out his purpose in life and what he wants to do beyond it. And so as any student going into these environments where work is going to be really demanding, performance-based, I think in some level, you have to be aware of what's your why. What is this connecting to in my purpose? And how am I ensuring that I don't lose sight of that? Because otherwise they're going to get chewed up. They're going to be spit out by that work. It's going to become toxic to their well-being. And so that's something that I offer to my students, is to be thinking through how your work is an expression or helping you get to your purpose. And if you can keep that really close together within your noble goal, I think they'll be able to sustain themselves really well.
It's something magical can happen when high execution and high values kind of work together. And that's that kind of inner sustaining motivation. And I would imagine, Mr. Rogers out there, that as your trustworthiness and your say-do ratio at work increases, your performance level, and they probably are connected. And we have a lot of case studies at 6seconds.org that investigate a lot of these things in manufacturing, in healthcare, and systems around the world. So feel free to check that out. As we wrap up today, I would love, these are some of the individuals you might be seeing at our conference in June, the Emotional Intelligence Conference for Colleges and Universities at 6 Seconds. And we would love to hear, what are you all excited about for this conference? What do you think it's going to offer the world in regards to student well-being globally?
Well, I'm hoping that the conference is something that really actually leads to transformation in higher education throughout the world. And I mean that not as just a tongue-in-cheek way to hope and aspire, but I do believe that these relationships we're talking about, how we build them and how they are lead to senses of belonging and certain goals are important. And our society is asking us to do better and to do more. And I think as we approach so much of a content-oriented, knowledge-based, we are seeing that across the world, we need to improve our relationships and way to connect in our networks. And we have to be able to foster that on our campuses. And I think, honestly, it's going to take for us to, borrowing from John Lewis, we got to get in some good trouble on our campus communities to take the lead on this, to actually foster and role model and really truly pursue this change and transformation. Otherwise, we'll do an incremental change, but it won't lead to the systematic change. And this system is old, it's ancient, it needs to be updated. And I think I'm hoping that the people who come to this conference are collective minded and want to see that change and be a part of it.
Thank you. And Isaac, this is a great time to plug your survey, your research survey with ethical review board approval and everything. What can we do to help you in your research initiative specifically?
Yeah, so we have a survey that we constructed in preparation for the conference. We will ask that if you haven't got it, we'll get it to you. And so ask you fill that out. We ask you share with your colleagues because we want to collect data and really see how we can create change. And if we get data broadly from higher education, not just in the United States, but across the world, I think that data set, the information we get and collect will really be instrumental as we plan and move forward to reconstruct and think of new models for higher education. And then the other part is that some of our colleagues here are working on a book looking at higher education. Look, EQ goes to college, and we have an 8-part framework that we'll be sharing in this conference to have us think about how we can resituate emotional intelligence as a campus and think about how it relates to so many different parts of the operation and functioning. And we want to get input on that from people attending the conference. So I'm looking forward to this collective knowledge building that we're going to be engaged in. And I'm looking forward and be happy to get any more assistance in getting this message out. And so we can help create change.
Fabulous. I see the link was just put in the chat. You can take it, send it to your colleagues, everyone in administration, et cetera. Other wrap-up comments, Angela, Laura, Amal, and Bob, what are you looking forward to in getting together with like minds?
Yeah, just looking forward to traction, as Isaac was saying, on a real systems change and culture change, and kind of back to my earlier thought about rigor. If this is the way we can kind of get empathy and relationships and optimism in the indicators of rigor, or even just get rid of the word rigor altogether and make this what it counts. Yeah, just bringing. Hoping that this, by all of us singing loud from the same songbook, that we can value in very tangible ways well-being and humanity and compassion in the classroom.
That was a beautiful metaphor. Thank you. I love that. I'm just super excited that we are having this conversation, and with the platform that EQ has of a worldwide conversation, I hope, just like the others have mentioned, that there can be some real transformation in this.
Yeah, I'm a conference junkie. I absolutely love conferences. Like, I get to meet people, I get to network, meet other like-minded folks, and then to also be exchanging information is just so cool. Like, what do you do in your neck of the woods? And for me, I'm excited to bring those tools. Like, what am I doing at USF? What are the strategies that I've been able to integrate into the courses, co-curricular programs, and learn from others about what's successful and what's not, so that I can continue transforming where I am. And I think that kind of adds to the revolution. But yeah, thanks so much to all my panelists. Everything you've been saying, I'm very excited by.
Thank you. I would definitely echo what everyone's saying, awareness, increase the awareness, make it normal, typical to have conversations about what are we doing to increase emotional intelligence, well-being at our university, what initiatives we have, and definitely tools and lessons learned and from what everyone else has been doing and what's working.
So if you're out there listening, please send this video link to your colleagues if you think, we always end by saying you are not alone. If you think you're the only one in your institution, in your country going at this initiative, you are not. There's a global community here. We love friend making, and 6 Seconds, we judge ourselves by our ability to help you pursue your noble goal at your institution. So come join us, come help, and we really hope to see you at our next live stream in May. And Dr. Carter will be moderating. I can't wait for that one. And we'll see you all in June. So apply to submit some conference proposals, roundtables, experiential workshops in any language. Just write us with what you have, and we'll see how we can fit it in. Thank you so much, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.